I was just thinking the other day, I felt this weird, kind of tired
Oh,
recently.
yeah.
Yeah, it's not like I ran a marathon or anything. My legs are fine. My body feels, well, okay.
Uh-huh.
But my brain just feels fuzzy,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Like it's working overtime, but on like nothing productive,
Mm-hmm. Drained.
totally drained.
Yeah.
Even simple decisions feel hard. It's that feeling, I think it's often called like tired in your heart or mind. Have
Mm.
you felt that?
Absolutely. That sense of internal drain, that mental fatigue without the physical exertion, it's incredibly prevalent today.
Right.
Yeah, you're definitely not alone in feeling that. And that's precisely what we're diving into right now.
Okay, good.
We've got this great stack of material you shared, articles, research, some notes that really digs into why this happens and crucially what we can actually do about it.
Perfect. Because I'd love to understand why my like psychological battery seems to be running on empty sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'm really eager to see what these insights offer, for you, the listener who shared this material, and honestly for me too.
So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack that feeling of cutful. We'll explore its surprisingly complex roots, introduce a really fascinating concept called alooth, or emotional granularity.
Emotional granularity, okay.
Yeah, and pull out the practical tools and strategies presented in this material to help, well, navigate it all.
Okay, let's unpack this then. So digging into the material, it isn't just about being physically tired.
No, not at all.
It's described as something deeper, like a psychological energy depletion, a state of internal mental friction.
Hmm.
One perspective shared puts it really powerfully, like feeling like you're fighting yourself inside.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, it's when your mind is just this battlefield of doubt, anxiety, fear, constant struggle, and all that inner conflict just like sucks up your psychological energy.
It really does. And Troy, in more formal terms, is defined as exactly that state of inner psychological conflict and significant energy consumption.
Right.
It's complex because it arises from internal factors, sure, but it's heavily amplified by the external world we're all navigating every day.
Uh-huh.
It's not just about what's outside or what's inside, it's that demanding interaction between the two.
And boy, does our external world provide demands. The material highlights some big culprits for this depletion feeling.
For sure.
Think about information overload. There was a study mentioned, I think UC Irvine, finding we process 5 times more information daily now than people did back in, 1986.
5 times, that's huge.
Isn't it? That sheer volume just overwhelms the brain, fuels distraction, anxiety.
It's like trying to download the entire internet with, dial-up speed. Your brain just can't keep up.
Exactly. Then there's social comparison.
Yeah.
Constantly seeing those curated, seemingly perfect lives on social media.
Oh, definitely.
That leads straight to feelings of inferiority, jealousy, anxiety. It's all there in the material.
The comparison trap.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it also points to the high-pressure environments. Many of us are in intense competition at work, financial worries, family responsibilities. It creates this constant underlying tension.
Mm-hmm. Non-stop pressure.
And finally, a lack of clear goals or just feeling lost or purposeless. That can bring on a sense of helplessness and emptiness that's incredibly draining too.
And we absolutely can't overlook the physiological and lifestyle factors the material brings up. These can really contribute to or worsen this.
Like what kind of things?
Well, things like irregular sleep patterns, for starters, side effects from certain medications, a sedentary lifestyle, lack of physical activity.
When just sitting too much.
Yeah, even just excessive screen time causing eye strain. And then there are potential underlying health issues like thyroid problems or sleep apnea. Those are mentioned too. And something really simple like dehydration is highlighted. It actually reduces blood volume and overall bodily efficiency, which directly causes fatigue.
Wow, I wouldn't have necessarily connected dehydration directly like that.
Yeah, and plus, our nutrition. Too much processed food, not enough fruits, vegetables, protein. It basically starves your body and messes with blood sugar stability, impacting energy and mood.
So the core insight here, it seems, is that this A isn't just one single thing.
Yeah.
It's this tangled web, right? Spun from our internal state, the relentless pace of modern life, and the fundamental ways we are or aren't taking care of our physical selves.
Exactly. It's a systemic issue hitting both mind and body.
Okay.
And it shows up in specific ways. The material details common signs or manifestations of this internal friction.
Like what?
Well, one major one is overreflection, constantly replaying events, agonizing. Did I say the wrong thing? Did I do something
How did I
wrong?
know that loop?
Right. It's pure mental energy drain.
Yeah.
There's research mentioned, including a study in psychological science, noting how this over-reflection is linked to low mood and actually hinders effective decision-making.
So you just spin your wheels, basically.
Pretty much. Other signs include perfectionism, setting those impossible standards, always feeling not good enough, leading to chronic self-blame,
Mm-hmm.
choice paralysis, where the fear of making the wrong decision is so strong you struggle to make any decision.
Right, getting stuck.
Yeah. And procrastination, which is often fueled by that same fear of failure or perfectionism, creating this vicious cycle of anxiety and self-blame as deadlines approach.
Okay, here's where it gets really significant for me, though. It's not just an unpleasant feeling in your head.
No.
It has real, measurable physical costs. The material is really clear that this psychological drain impacts your body.
Absolutely. The physical consequences of chronic C and the stress it embodies are, well, profound. Okay, so on the cardiovascular front, prolonged stress can elevate heart rate, blood pressure, increasing the risk of heart disease. Research cited even suggests a 1.5 to 2.3 times higher risk for people reporting poor emotional health.
Wow, that's significant.
It is. Metabolically, it disrupts eating habits, weight, blood sugar regulation, increasing the risk of diabetes, high cholesterol.
Okay.
Then there's the powerful brain-gut connection. Stress directly affects your digestive system. Think bloating, constipation, or making IBS worse.
Mm-hmm. The gut feelings.
Literally, your immune system takes a hit too. The material mentions research showing reduced white blood cell activity, making you more vulnerable to infections.
So you get sick more easily.
Potentially, yes. And cognitively, it affects brain areas involved in emotion, learning, memory, leading to concentration issues, memory problems, that fuzzy feeling you mentioned.
Right, that makes sense. And you also see behavioral signs, don't you? Like changes in eating or sleeping.
Exactly. Changes in habits, maybe withdrawing from friends, social activities, a drop in performance at work or school, even neglecting basic personal needs.
Yeah.
The critical takeaway here is that your body is essentially speaking when your mind is slaying. Many physical discomforts we might dismiss, that nagging fatigue, digestion issues, headaches, are often direct physiological responses to chronic mental and emotional stress.
Right.
The material really emphasizes that managing your emotional health isn't separate from physical health, it's foundational. These symptoms are often early warning signals that your internal system is under serious strain.
Okay, so if it's this kind of fuzzy, draining state, how do we start to get a more, precise handle on it?
Yeah, good question.
The material introduces a concept here that feels really key. NUIs, or emotional granularity. What exactly is this about?
Right, emotional granularity. This concept, it's largely associated with the neuroscientist Lisa Feldman Barrett, and it's discussed quite a bit in the material. It's basically your ability to distinguish, identify, and specifically name your feelings in different situations.
Okay, distinguish and name them.
Yeah. Think of it like the resolution of your emotional lens. How detailed can you be about what you're feeling right now? It's linked to the theory of constructed emotion, which suggests emotions aren't just simple reactions triggered by events. Instead, they're actively built by your brain using past experiences, internal body signals, and the concepts or words you've learned for emotions.
So the words we have matter.
Hugely. High emotional granularity means you have a rich, nuanced library of emotional concepts available. The material breaks it down into two aspects: the fine-grained feeling you actually experience, and your capacity to describe or report it accurately.
Okay, but why does having this fine-grained view matter so much? Isn't just knowing if I feel generally good or bad enough?
Well, the material strongly argues it's really not enough. The difference between high and low EG emotional granularity is significant for navigating that TO.
How so?
With high EG, you experience and express emotion more precisely. So instead of just feeling vaguely bad after, say, a setback,
Right.
you can pinpoint if it's disappointment or maybe frustration or perhaps embarrassment.
Okay, I see. Getting specific.
Exactly. And the insight here is that this precision leads to stronger emotion regulation. You're less likely to be overwhelmed because you know exactly which flavor of bad feeling you're dealing with.
Interesting. Like if I can name it accurately, it has less power over me somehow.
Partially, yes. And the material points out this also translates to better stress coping and resilience. People with higher EG, They're less likely to resort to negative coping methods like drinking too much or overeating.
Wow.
They're less reactive, tend to have lower levels of anxiety and depression. They show more adaptive behavior, adjusting their response flexibly based on the specific emotion they identify.
And it helps with understanding others, too.
Yeah, social insight improves. You get better at reading situations and people.
So low EG is basically feeling this big, blurry blob of just unhappy and finding it hard to explain why, feeling easily controlled by these strong but undifferentiated feelings.
That's a great description. Low EG means your internal experience and external expression are fuzzy, vague. The material notes this can lead your brain to default to these rigid, generalized responses to different negative situations.
Which wastes energy.
Exactly. It's incredibly energy inefficient and just fuels that soul quandary. You might react with the same intense negative feeling to spilling your coffee as you do to a major conflict at work.
Okay, so the crucial part is the precision of the label, getting the word right.
Yes, precisely. Because, as the material highlights, emotions carry vital information about our internal state and our environment. Giving an emotion a precise label is like handing your brain a specific instruction manual.
Okay.
It tells your brain, okay, this is the specific problem, say unfair treatment, and this suggests a possible action, like maybe speak up or set a boundary.
Right. Different problems need different solutions.
Exactly. Distinguishing, say, anxiety about a potential future outcome from anger about a past injustice points you towards completely different, targeted actions. Fuzzy feelings lead to fuzzy, often ineffective responses.
Which just keeps the C cycle going.
Right. But the great news is it's a cognitive skill. And the material is clear. It's something you can actively improve.
I really liked the analogy I saw in the material. It said that labeling an emotion is like putting a door handle on the door of that emotion.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, without the handle, you can't open the door to look inside and really understand what's going on. It just makes so much sense.
It really does capture that step of gaining access and understanding, which leads us directly into the practical tools the material suggests for enhancing emotional granularity and managing stress.
Okay, tools. Let's hear them.
First up is the simple but really powerful act of naming emotions, sometimes called emotional clarification or affect labeling.
Just naming it still feels a bit too simple sometimes. Does it really work?
Well, the research discussed in the material demonstrates that simply putting a specific label on a negative emotion can actually reduce its intensity.
Huh.
There's a fascinating example given about people with spider phobia. Those who were asked to describe their fear precisely using specific words showed reduced physiological arousal, like heart rate.
No way.
Yeah, and reported less subjective fear. It actually made them able to approach the spider more closely than those who didn't label their fear specifically.
Wow. Okay. So just acknowledging the feeling specifically makes it less overwhelming?
From a brain perspective, yes. The material explains that labeling activates the prefrontal cortex, that's the area associated with rational thought, executive function.
The thinking part of the brain.
Right. And this prefrontal activity helps regulate the amygdala, the brain's fear center. It acts like a brake, allowing you to process the emotion more calmly, less reactively.
Okay, the brake analogy helps.
And, as we discussed, this clarification also guides action, distinguishing disappointment from anger from jealousy. It points you toward much more constructive responses than just a vague, I feel bad.
But what about when we express emotions in ways that are actually, unhelpful or even harmful? The material touches on common error expressions, right?
Yes, definitely. Like using really vague language that's the low EG showing up again, just saying, I'm fine or I'm upset when something specific and nameable is happening.
Right, hiding it or minimizing it.
Exactly. The material also brings in an Adlerian perspective, which is interesting. It suggests emotions sometimes have a hidden purpose, serving an underlying life pattern or goal.
A purpose? Like what?
Well, for instance, guilt might sometimes be used, maybe unconsciously, to manipulate sympathy or avoid responsibility. Anger could be a tactic to gain control or overcome feelings of inferiority. Resentment might stem from seeking acceptance while maybe clinging to a victim identity. It's about looking behind the emotion sometimes.
That's a different angle. And then there's outright emotional manipulation, like gaslighting.
Yes, the material defines gaslighting clearly as denying or twisting someone else's reality or feelings to make them doubt themselves.
What are some examples?
Tactics like telling someone you're just too sensitive, or that didn't happen the way you remember it, or maybe using emotional blackmail like, if you really cared about me, you wouldn't question me.
Ugh, yeah, horrible stuff.
Exactly. And the material emphasizes the immense damage these methods cause. They don't resolve issues, they create conflict, destroy trust, and significantly harm the emotional and physical health of the person being targeted.
So understanding the potential purpose behind some poor expressions, like from the Adlerian view, might help someone change their own patterns, but gaslighting is just harmful.
Precisely. Recognizing the potential purpose might offer insight for self-change, but the focus remains on the damaging impact of things like gaslighting.
Okay, so recognizing these pitfalls is important. How do we actively get better at healthy naming and understanding? What are the practical tools mentioned?
There are a couple of really great ones suggested. First, the emotion wheel.
The whale, right.
It's a visual tool designed specifically to expand your emotional vocabulary and help you see the spectrum of feelings. Often it starts with core emotions in the center, like happy, sad, angry, and branches out to more specific, nuanced terms.
Like different shades of a color.
Exactly. The material mentions Plutchik's wheel as a common example. It shows how emotions have different intensities and how basic ones can combine, like joy plus trust equals love, or anger plus disgust equals contempt.
Okay, I think I've seen those online. They're often in quite colorful diagrams. How do you actually use it day to day?
Well, you can start with the most general feeling you identify in the center, maybe sad. Then you move outwards on the wheel to find more precise words that really match what you're experiencing. Is it grief, disappointment, loneliness?
Okay, so it guides you to the right word.
Yeah, or you can look at the emotions next to it to see related feelings or potential combinations. It gives you a visual map, a guide to help find that more accurate label. It's also really helpful in communication because you can point to it or describe feelings using shared terms.
Makes sense. And the other tool mentioned was emotion diaries.
Yes, basically journaling about your emotions, writing down your experiences to track, understand, and reflect.
What kind of things should you write down?
The material suggests including specific details, the date and time, the situation or trigger, the specific emotions you felt, and their intensity using the wheel can help here.
Right.
Also, any automatic thoughts that popped into your head, physical sensations you noticed in your body, like a knot in your stomach or tight shoulders, and the behavior or action you took in response.
Got it.
The material even provides example tables showing how you might structure this. The real insight here is that writing it down helps you step back, see patterns over time, and connect the dots between situations, feelings, thoughts, and your responses.
So these diaries and wheels, they're not just like busy work. They're active ways to build that EG muscle, that emotional granularity.
Exactly. They're practical exercises. And the material lists other active practices too, like consciously expanding your vocabulary, read more, watch movies, and pay attention to how characters describe feelings.
Use a thesaurus, even.
Absolutely. Use a thesaurus for common words like sad or angry to find more nuanced alternatives. Practice mindful observation, non-judgmentally notice your inner feelings and body sensations. The key here is not to settle for a vague label. Explore the details. Where do you feel it? What's the texture? Does it change?
Asking yourself those deeper, more specific questions.
Yes. And also seek feedback. Talk to trusted people about your feelings. Try using new emotion words. Ask how they perceive or describe similar situations. Reflect on past experiences and try relabeling them with your expanded vocabulary.
Kind of like updating your emotional software.
That's a great way to think about it. And simply make an effort to use more precise emotion words daily in your conversations and writing. And the material really links all of this back to regulation and relationships. Accurate identification is a cornerstone for effectively regulating your emotions.
Right. You can't manage what you don't understand.
Precisely. And high EG also significantly helps social communication and empathy, allowing you to understand others better. Conversely, poor expression like gaslighting, as we discussed, actively damages relationships. Understanding the potential purpose behind unhelpful expressions, like the Adlerian view suggests, might offer a pathway for change, but healthy expression is key.
Okay, this is super helpful. Now that we have a better handle on what you're feeling with more granularity, how do we actually deal with the stress that contributes so much to that sigh? What strategies does the material recommend?
Right, so it shifts focus to practical stress management techniques. The very first step recommended is often stressor analysis, really identifying your personal triggers.
Figuring out what sets you off.
Exactly. What situations, people, or tasks consistently cause you stress? The material suggests using a stress diary, similar to the emotion diary. You note the stressor, its intensity, your thoughts, your reactions, emotional and physical, and the outcome.
So you can see the patterns.
Yes, this helps you see your unique patterns so you can target your management efforts effectively rather than just guessing.
Okay. And mindfulness comes up a lot everywhere these days. Kind of a buzzword, but based on the material, what is it fundamentally?
At its core, the material defines mindfulness as non-judgmental, present moment awareness. It's about paying attention to what's happening right now, both internally, thoughts, feelings, sensations, and externally, without immediately getting caught up in judging it or trying to change it.
Just noticing.
Just noticing with certain attitudes. Key attitudes mentioned, often associated with MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction, include non-judging, patience, having a beginner's mind, seeing things fresh, trust in yourself and the process, non-striving, not trying too hard to achieve something, acceptance, and letting go.
And does it actually work for stress?
The documented benefits found in the material are pretty compelling. Reduced stress, anxiety, and depression symptoms, improved focus and concentration, less burnout, better sleep quality,
Okay, sounds good.
potential physical benefits like lower blood pressure, and even, interestingly, reduced activity in the amygdala, that fear center we talked about earlier.
Wow, so it ties right back to the brain science again.
It does. The material mentions both formal mindfulness practices like sitting meditation, body scans, mindful walking, or yoga, and informal ones,
Informal, like what?
like taking mindful breathing breaks during the day, practicing mindful eating, bringing awareness to everyday chores like washing dishes, or just tuning into your senses for a moment.
So it doesn't have to be sitting on a cushion for an hour.
Not at all. The advice is consistent. Start small. Even just 5–10 minutes a day can make a difference. The key is consistency over time.
Okay. Let's talk about the simplest tool of all breathing. We all do it, obviously. But are we doing it in a way that actually helps with stress?
That's a great point. The material explains why focusing on breathing works so well. It's a direct line to your autonomic nervous system, the ANS.
Okay.
Conscious, deep breathing can help shift you out of the fight-or-flight sympathetic state and into the rest and digest parasympathetic state, which promotes relaxation. The primary technique discussed is abdominal breathing, or diaphragmatic breathing.
Okay. Diaphragm breathing. How does that work, step by step?
All right. Find a comfortable position, maybe sitting upright or lying down. You can place one hand gently on your chest and the other on your belly, just below the rib cage.
Okay, got it.
Now inhale slowly through your nose. Focus on letting your belly expand outwards, like you're filling a balloon, while trying to keep your chest relatively still.
Belly out, chest still.
Right. You can pause briefly after the inhale if that feels comfortable. Then exhale slowly, either through your nose or mouth, feeling your belly gently contract inwards. The key is often to make the exhale slightly longer than the inhale.
Longer exhale.
The material suggests aiming for a rhythm, maybe like 4 seconds breathing in and 4 to 6 seconds breathing out. This naturally slows your breathing rate down to about 6 to 8 breaths per minute, which is very calming.
6 to 8 breaths a minute.
Yeah. The practice involves just focusing your attention on the physical sensation of the breath moving in and out. Don't force it, just let it be natural and gentle. And the beauty is you can do this literally anywhere at your desk, waiting in line, on your commute.
A quick reset button.
Exactly. And then there's the power of our thoughts. This ties into cognitive restructuring, which is a core part of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. How do our thoughts shape this so feeling?
Right, the thought patterns.
The fundamental principle here, really highlighted in the material, is that our emotions aren't just caused by events themselves, but heavily influenced by our thoughts and interpretations of those events.
Okay. So how do we work with that?
The steps outlined are pretty clear. First, identify your automatic negative thoughts, or ANTs.
ANTs, okay. Like little pests in your head.
Kind of. They're those instantaneous, often unexamined negative thoughts that just pop into your head, sometimes called unhelpful beliefs, like thinking, I'm a total failure, after making one small mistake at work.
Yeah, I know those thoughts.
So step 1 is noticing them. Step 2 is to challenge and evaluate those thoughts. The material suggests becoming a thought detective.
A detective, how?
Ask yourself, what's the actual evidence for this thought? What's the evidence against it? Am I falling into any common cognitive distortions?
Cognitive distortions.
Where?
Like twisting reality without realizing it.
Exactly. The material lists common examples. Catastrophizing, assuming the absolute worst will happen. All or nothing thinking, seeing things only in black and white extremes. Overgeneralization, taking one negative event and seeing it as a never-ending pattern of defeat.
Labeling.
Yes, labeling yourself or others harshly. Disqualifying the positive, ignoring good things that happen. Mind reading, assuming you know what others are thinking negatively about you. Emotional reasoning, believing something must be true just because you feel it very strongly.
Okay, lots of ways our thinking can get distorted.
Yeah. So you identify the distortion, then ask, are there alternative, more realistic explanations for the situation? What would I tell a friend if they came to me with the same thought? One helpful technique mentioned is challenging the spotlight effect, questioning how much others are truly focused on our perceived flaws or mistakes. Usually it's way less than we think.
Right, we're usually harder on ourselves. Okay, so you identify the ANT, you challenge it, find the distortions. What's next?
Then, step 3 is to develop more balanced, realistic alternative thoughts based on the evidence you gathered. So instead of I'm a total failure, it might become something like, okay, I made a mistake on that one task, but I can learn from it, and it doesn't define my overall competence. I succeeded at other things.
Replacing the negative with something more balanced.
Exactly. And the material even provides example tables for a cognitive restructuring worksheet to help guide you step by step through this whole process situation, ANT, emotion, evidence, alternative thought.
That sounds really practical. And underpinning all these psychological techniques are those fundamental lifestyle adjustments you mentioned earlier, right? Sleep, diet, exercise, social connection.
Absolutely. These are presented in the material as basically non-negotiable foundations for building stress resilience. They make everything else work better.
Okay, let's quickly recap those. Sleep.
Crucial for emotional regulation, cognitive function, immune health. The material gives tips. Aim for 7-8 hours consistently. Maintain a regular sleep schedule. Optimize your bedroom environment, dark, quiet, cool. Have a relaxing pre-bed routine, and avoid screens or stimulants like caffeine close to bedtime.
Diet.
Impacts energy levels, mood stability. Focus on varied whole foods, fruits, veggies, lean protein, whole grains. Stay well hydrated, remembering that dehydration actually increases the stress hormone cortisol. Eat regular meals to avoid blood sugar crashes. And limit stimulants like caffeine and excessive sugar. Highlighted as a natural antidepressant. It releases endorphins, improves mood, reduces tension. The key is finding activity you actually enjoy, so you'll stick with it. Aim for regularity, maybe 30+ minutes most days, and integrate movement throughout your day, not just one gym session.
Get it from the desk more.
Exactly. And finally, social connection.
Yeah, that feels important.
Hugely. It provides essential support, a sense of belonging, perspective. Maintain relationships with supportive people. Don't be afraid to seek help when needed. Engage with your community if possible, and also learn to set healthy boundaries to protect your social energy.
Okay, so these lifestyle pieces really seem to support the psychological tools, like making them easier to use.
They absolutely do. Mindfulness becomes much easier when your body isn't screaming from lack of sleep or poor nutrition, right? Having adequate energy from good diet and exercise helps you engage in the sometimes challenging work of identifying and restructuring negative thoughts. It's this integrated approach the material strongly advocates for. It's not just about reacting to stress when it hits, it's about proactively building a resilient system from the ground up.
Okay, this all sounds incredibly valuable, but it also sounds like, well, a lot to incorporate into an already busy life that might be causing this in the first place.
That's a very real challenge.
How does the material suggest making these practices actually stick, making them a habit?
That's key. The material offers some smart strategies here, particularly focusing on using what it calls scattered time.
Scattered time.
Yeah, you don't necessarily need to carve out huge, dedicated chunks of your day. Think about integrating practices into existing routines or small pockets of time that already exist.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Okay, so maybe your commute, if you're not driving, you could do some breathing exercises. Listen to a short guided mindfulness track, or just practice mindful observation of your surroundings instead of scrolling.
Oh.
Use short work breaks for quick movement stretching, walking around, or a mini mindfulness exercise for just 2-3 minutes, or even just eating your snack mindfully, noticing the taste and texture.
Right, using the breaks we already have.
Exactly. Evenings or before bed are great times to create a simple relaxation ritual, maybe 5 minutes of gentle stretching, a short meditation or body scan using an app, or journaling about your day. The core idea is connecting these new practices to existing habits, like doing deep breathing while your coffee brews, or fitting them into moments that are already part of your daily rhythm. Makes them much easier to remember and do.
What about specifically at work? Since that's such a common source of stress and sigh for so many people.
Yeah, the material provides specific strategies for managing work stress, too. First, identify your specific work stressors. Is it the volume of email, a particular type of meeting, deadline pressure, Knowing the trigger is step one.
Okay.
Then work on mindset changes like challenging negative thought patterns about work, practicing single tasking instead of multitasking, setting realistic micro goals for the day.
Micro goals, I like that. Less overwhelming.
Definitely. Adjust your behavior and environment. Maybe create a calming pre-work ritual to transition into the day. Take regular short breaks away from your desk. Incorporate movement. Optimize your workspace if you can declutter. Add a plant. Prioritize healthy eating and hydration during the workday.
Right? Don't just wait till you get home.
Exactly.
Ah.
Build your people skills. Practice clear, assertive communication. Build positive relationships with colleagues where possible. And critically, set clear work-life boundaries. Create a defined switch, maybe changing clothes, going for a walk to mentally signal the end of your workday and transition out of work mode.
That boundary setting is huge.
It really is. The material even provides an example integration plan table as a kind of template for mapping out how you might build these different habits into your specific daily or weekly routine.
Okay, so this really isn't just about getting through a tough week or month. It feels like it's about building long-term well-being.
Exactly right. This journey towards better emotional health, towards managing SIL, has profound long-term impacts. The material references the World Health Organization's definition of health. It's not just the absence of disease, but a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being.
Right, the whole picture.
And it constantly reinforces that strong link between your emotional health and your physical health impacting your heart, your metabolism, your digestion, your immune system, even your brain function over the long haul. There's research mentioned that connects taking responsibility for one's health and actively cultivating emotional well-being to actually having lower rates of depression.
So actively working on this skill, building these skills like emotional granularity and stress management, it's really a form of proactive preventative medicine for your entire system.
It truly is. The material suggests the long-term benefits include higher overall life satisfaction, increased resilience to face future challenges, healthier and more fulfilling relationships, and significantly, a reduced risk of various chronic physical ailments down the road.
That's powerful.
So bringing it all back to that feeling of you mentioned right at the start,
Yeah.
the overwhelming message from all this material seems to be that while it's incredibly common in our modern world, it is not a fixed state or some inescapable fate. That internal friction, that psychological energy drain, it can be managed.
That's hopeful.
It is. The tools and strategies we've explored, from understanding emotional granularity and precisely naming your feelings, to practicing specific stress management techniques like breathing and cognitive restructuring, and reinforcing those foundational healthy lifestyle habits they give you, the agency, the power to actively shape your emotional landscape and change how you respond to the challenges life throws at you.
It starts with awareness, right?
It starts with awareness of what's happening inside, definitely, and it strengthens through consistent, even small practice over time.
And remember, as the material suggests, you don't have to implement every single thing we talked about all at once. That would be overwhelming.
Absolutely not.
Starting small, maybe picking just one or two practices that resonate with you
Mm-hmm.
and being consistent with those, that's usually much more effective than trying to overhaul everything overnight and then burning out.
Couldn't agree more. Small steps, consistently taken.
And if things feel truly overwhelming, if that feels really deep and persistent, remember that seeking professional help from a therapist, counselor, or doctor is never a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of courage and a strong commitment to your own well-being. It's a proactive step towards building that inner strength and getting the support you might need.
Well said. So maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to ponder, building on all this material. Consider how much mental energy you might currently be spending caught in that cycle of perhaps fighting yourself internally without even fully realizing it. What single small practice from this deep dive could you realistically start today, maybe even right now, to redirect just a fraction of that energy, not towards friction, but towards building inner peace and strength instead?
That's a powerful question to sit with. This has been a really insightful deep dive into understanding mental fatigue, that feeling of, and finding practical ways towards our calm, drawing on all the great material you shared. Thanks so much for joining us.